Good day, everyone. We are the Group 5, and today we are presenting the Sustainable Development Goals number 1 to 6. Here we have the overview. First, we have the introduction. Second, SDG 1, no poverty. SDG 2, zero hunger. SDG 3, good health and well-being. SDG 4, quality education. SDG 5, gender equality. SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. The Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs, adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015, are a set of 17 interconnected global goals designed to address the world's most pressing challenges, encompassing a wide range of social, economic, and environmental issues. The SDGs aim to achieve a more sustainable and equitable future by 2030.
Sustainable Development Goal 1, no poverty. SDG 1 aims to eradicate every form of extreme poverty, including the lack of food, clean drinking water, and sanitation. Achieving this goal includes finding solutions to new threats caused by climate change and conflict. SDG 1 focuses not just on people living in poverty, but also on the services people rely on and social policy that either promotes or prevents poverty. SDG 1 Key Targets or Goals. By 2030, reduce at least by half the proportion of men, women, and children of all ages living in poverty in all its dimensions according to national definitions. Implement nationally appropriate social protection systems and measures for all, including floors, and by 2030, achieve substantial coverage of the poor and the vulnerable. By 2030, ensure that all men and women, in particular the poor and the vulnerable, have equal rights to economic resources, as well as access to basic services, ownership, and control over land and other forms of property, inheritance, natural resources, appropriate new technology, and financial services, including microfinance. By 2030, build the resilience of the poor and those in vulnerable situations, and reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate-related extreme events and other economic, social, and environmental shocks and disasters. Ensure significant mobilization of resources from a variety of sources, including through enhanced development cooperation, in order to provide adequate and predictable means for developing countries, in particular least developed countries, to implement programs and policies to end poverty in all its dimensions. And lastly, create sound policy frameworks at the national, regional, and international levels based on pro-poor and gender-sensitive development strategies to support accelerated investment in poverty eradication actions.
SDG 2 Zero Hunger is a pivotal component of the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, aiming to eradicate hunger, ensure food security, enhance nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture worldwide by 2030. This multifaceted goal encompasses efforts and addresses hungers in all its forms, including malnutrition and food insecurity, by guaranteeing universal access to safe, nutritious food. Achieving zero hunger demands a holistic approach that spans the entire food supply chain, from production to consumption, emphasizing the need for inclusive strategies that leave no one behind. Central to SDG 2 is the promotion of sustainable agriculture practices that prioritizes environmental stewardship alongside food production. This entails adopting methods such as agroecology and of conservation agriculture to enhance productivity while minimizing ecological harm. By fostering sustainable farming techniques, communities can not only improve food security but also safeguard natural resources for future generations, fostering resilience to climate change and environmental degradation. Moreover, SDG 2 underscores the vital role of supporting smallholder farmers, particularly in developing countries, who often face barriers such as limited resources and access to markets. Empowering these farmers with the necessary resources and support can enhance their productivity, livelihoods, and resilience to external shocks, contributing to broader efforts to achieve food security and poverty reduction. Lastly, SDG 2 recognizes the interconnected nature of food security, nutrition, health, poverty, and environmental sustainability, emphasizing the need for integrated approaches that addresses underlying systemic issues. Collaboration among governments, international organizations, civil society, the private sector, and local communities is crucial for realizing zero hunger by 2030. By prioritizing food security, nutrition, and sustainable agriculture, SDG 2 seeks to create a world where everyone has access to adequate and nutritious food, laying the foundation for a more equitable and sustainable future. The key targets of SDG 2 is number 1, to end hunger worldwide. This target aims to ensure access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food for all people, particularly the poor and vulnerable populations. Those affected include people living in poverty, vulnerable populations such as children, pregnant women, and the elderly. Those living in regions affected by conflict, natural disaster, or economic instability. Number 2, ending malnutrition. This focuses on ending all forms of malnutrition, including stunting and wasting in children under 5 years old, and addressing the nutritional needs of specific groups, including children under 5 years old at risk of stunting and wasting, adolescent girls, pregnant women, and lactating mothers in need of adequate nutrition, older persons who may face challenges in accessing nutritious food. Number 3, doubling agricultural productivity. This emphasizes the importance of sustainable agriculture practices and resilient agricultural system. Those affected include the farmers and agricultural workers who rely on the land for their livelihoods, communities dependent on agriculture for food security and income, ecosystems and biodiversity which are impacted by sustainable farming practices and climate change. Number 4, sustainable food production systems. It emphasizes the importance of sustainable agriculture practices and resilient agricultural systems. Those affected include the farmers and agricultural workers who rely on the land for their livelihoods, communities dependent on agriculture for food, security and income, ecosystem and biodiversity that are impacted by unsustainable farming practices and climate change. Number 5, and lastly, genetic diversity and access to resource. Finally, this target focuses on maintaining genetic diversity and ensuring fair access to genetic resources. Those affected include the farmers and agricultural researchers who rely on genetic diversity for crop improvement and adaptation, indigenous communities with traditional knowledge of plant-animal breeding, organizations involved in seed and gene banks which play a crucial role in preserving genetic resources for future generations.
SDG 3, Good Health and Well-Being. In the context of Sustainable Development Goals, good health and well-being refers to the SDG 3, which aims to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. This includes targets such as reducing maternal mortality, ending preventable deaths of newborns and children under 5, combating communicable diseases such as HIV or AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis, as well as non-communicable diseases, ensuring access to sexual and reproductive health care services, and achieving universal health coverage. Essentially, it encompasses efforts to improve physical, mental, and social well-being, and to ensure access to quality health care services for everyone. SDG 3 targets combat communicable diseases and the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected tropical diseases. Environmental health address the adverse impacts of environmental hazards and strengthen the capacity of countries to prevent and manage environmental health risks and diseases. Universal health coverage. Achieve universal health coverage including financial risk protection, access to quality essential healthcare services, and access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicines and vaccines for all. Reducing maternal mortality by ending preventable deaths of newborn children under 5 years old by adopting a healthy lifestyle. Ensuring access to sexual and reproductive healthcare services and combating communicable diseases such as HIV, AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis.
Sustainable Development Goal 4, which centers on quality education, is one of the 17 goals established by the United Nations in 2015 as part of the broader agenda for sustainable development. The goal of SDG 4, or Sustainable Development Goal 4, is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for all. This goal aims to diminish education disparities by addressing both accessibility and quality. It underscores the importance of ensuring high-quality education for everyone, particularly vulnerable groups such as impoverished children, those in rural areas, individuals with disabilities, indigenous populations, and refugee children. Here are the targets or goals of SDG 4. By 2030, ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and goal for effective learning outcomes. By 2030, ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development, care, and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. By 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational, and tertiary education, including university. By 2030, substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. By 2030, eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and children in vulnerable situations. By 2030, ensure that all youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and nonviolence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. Build and upgrade education facilities that are child, disability, and gender sensitive and provide safe, nonviolent, inclusive, and effective learning environments for all. By 2020, substantially expand globally the number of scholarships available to developing countries, in particular least developed countries, small island developing states, and African countries, for enrollment in higher education, including vocational training and information and communications technology, technical, engineering, and scientific programs in developed countries and other developing countries. By 2030, substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers, including through international cooperation for teacher training in developing countries, especially least developed countries and small island developing states.
SDG 5 Gender Equality. Addressing gender equality, Sustainable Development Goal SDG 5 seeks to empower all women and girls by guaranteeing their equal rights, including access to economic resources, healthcare, education, and political and decision-making opportunities. In the end, this objective aims to promote a more equitable, inclusive, and more sustainable society for all by eradicating all kinds of violence and discrimination against women and girls. According to UNFPA 2023, the attainment of universal human rights and sustainable development are inextricably related to gender equality. Gender equality aims to create a society where men and women have equal rights, duties, and opportunities in all areas of life. Gender equality is essential for several reasons. By guaranteeing that men and women have equal rights, chances, and accessibility to resources, it first advances social justice and fairness. Furthermore, through harnessing the full potential of half the world's population, it promotes economic growth and development. Women's entrepreneurship and involvement in the workforce may have a major positive impact on the economy. And by tackling matters that directly affect people and communities like education, healthcare, and political representation, it improves general well-being and quality of life. Last but certainly not the least, establishing gender equality is extremely important for creating a more inclusive, peaceful, and sustainable society as it promotes respect and understanding amongst individuals and helps dismantle gender-based stereotypes. It has been demonstrated that empowering women and girls promotes economic growth and development. Therefore, eliminating all forms of discrimination against them is not only essential for a sustainable future, but also a basic human right. Achieving gender equality necessitates adjustments for both men and women, a rethinking of women's and men's rights and obligations in the home, business, and society at large will be the cornerstone of more democratic relationships. For this reason, it is critical to acknowledge gender as a component of men's social identities, because it's common to view masculine traits and qualities as the standard and female traits a deviation from it. This truth is in reality frequently ignored. Here we have the targets of SDG 5 Gender Equality. First, we have end all forms of discrimination against women and girls everywhere. whether or not legal frameworks are in place to promote, enforce, and monitor equality and non-discrimination on the basis of sex. Second, eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking in sexual and other types of exploitation. Proportion of ever parted women and girls aged 15 years and older subjected to physical, sexual, or psychological violence by a current or former intimate partner in the previous 12 months by form of violence and by age. Proportion of women and girls aged 15 and older subjected to sexual violence by persons other than intimate partner in the previous 12 months by age and place of occurrence. Number 3, eliminate all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage, and female genital mutilation. Proportion of women aged 20 to 24 years who were married or in union before age 15 and before age 18. Proportion of girls and women aged 15 to 49 who have undergone female genital mutilation or cutting by age.
SDG 6 focuses on ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. The goal aims to address water scarcity, improve water quality, and provide access to adequate sanitation facilities, emphasizing the importance of water-related ecosystems. Here are the targets or goals of SDG 6. Universal access to safe and affordable drinking water. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water for all, including access to safe and affordable drinking water. Achieve adequate sanitation and end open defecation. Achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all, and end open defecation. Improve water quality and wastewater treatment. Improve water quality by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping, and minimizing the release of hazardous chemicals and materials. Enhance wastewater treatment and safe reuse.